All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Maryland Pork Producers Summer Learning Series. Today with us, we'd like to welcome John Heins to speak on everything show season prep. John Heins is from Sydney, Ohio, where he serves as the Manager of Producer Relations for National Pork Board. In his position, John delivers and markets education and certification programs to show pig producers across the United States and serves as a liaison between National Pork Board and these producers regarding programs, activities, and events. He also works to ensure adoption and utilization of key programs and initiatives that demonstrate responsible swine production while securing prompt and effective communication between the National Pork Board and all parties involved. John is a graduate of The Ohio State University, where he earned his Bachelor's of Science in Agriculture while majoring in Animal Sciences and minoring in Agribusiness and Applied Economics. In addition to working for the National Pork Board, he owns and operates Heins Show Pigs, consisting of 10 sows, focusing on the production of show pigs for youth exhibitors across the nation. And on top of all this that he already does, he has judged several state fairs and national shows, including the Team Purebred Eastern Regional held in Maryland a few years ago. So some of you listeners might have met him before, might have heard him talk before. Some of you might have not. So without any further ado, John, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here, Maggie, today. And I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that's tuning in and viewing this. It's an honor to work with show pig producers on a daily basis, such as yourself. And as many of us understand, we're kind of in the heat of show pig season. Just within the past 2 weeks, I've traveled to the World Pork Expo and visited with commercial producers at their trade show. But actually, here this week, I've spent a majority of my time at the Exposition, which is the largest junior swine show in the country. For an opportunity to meet multiple exhibitors, show pig enthusiasts across many different states. So we're picking up into the heat of things. So I think there's several things to keep in mind, in particular when you're working with and you're training your show pig to prepare for your county fair, possibly for Maryland State Fair coming up here later this summer into the early fall. But one of the big things that I want to highlight here when you're thinking about, working with your show pig is the utmost importance of health. We're blessed with the opportunity in the United States to have a show pig segment, and that is something that is unique to the United States. There's simply no other country across the globe that, provides this outlet for youth to work with swine and exhibit swine, whether that's at a local level, such as the county fair, at jackpot shows, maybe within your states or surrounding states in the mid-Atlantic, and certainly not from a state fair or national perspective. So protecting and safeguarding swine health is of the utmost priority, when we think about the future continuation of the show pig segment moving forward. And there's certainly ways that you all can help with that as you're prepping and training your show pigs, for your county fair, for your state fair, jackpot seasons. The first thing that I'd like to talk to you guys about is the importance of having that VCPR, that veterinary client patient relationship. A veterinarian's going to work with you, on safeguarding and troubleshooting those various swine health challenges that you might experience throughout the summer. It's not uncommon in the summer to see pigs come down with some type of a respiratory illness, whether that's full-blown pneumonia or maybe just, a cough or a hack. A veterinarian can help prescribe you with the right kind of medications and antibiotics to get your animal back on track. As someone who's judged multiple shows across the nation, I can't stress this enough. A sick pig's not going to do well at a show, regardless of what the level of competition is going to be. So keeping your animals healthy through having that VCPR, working with your veterinarian on vaccination protocols, worming your animal, with products such as an ivermectin or a Dectomax are all great ways to help keep your animal healthy and get off to a strong start as you progress through the summer. Um, in addition to that, another thing that I'd encourage you all to think about is, the importance of biosecurity. And I know you guys will learn more about this particular topic later on throughout this particular series. But biosecurity is really the protocols that you put in place to keep swine disease from entering your operation and getting your animals sick. If you have someone that's coming to your house that's maybe checking on your show pigs, assisting you with feeding or skin and hair, training and working with your animals, getting them used for, opportunities such as showmanship, getting them driven. I'd strongly encourage you to try to implement some biosecurity practices around your operation. We know that there's many different disease challenges out there that can affect pigs. Some common ones that we see in the show pig segment in particular are PRRS or porcine reproductive respiratory syndrome, and the other one being swine influenza virus. And unfortunately, those two diseases can put a pretty abrupt halt to the success of your show season and to the success of your projects moving forward. And there's easy ways that we can minimize this, right? If you have someone that's coming onto your operation, or maybe you're taking your pig to someone else's farm for training, things of that nature, just kind of getting them out of the barn and used to transport on a trailer for the first time. I'd highly encourage you to think about your footwear. If someone's coming onto your farm, make sure that they're wearing clean shoes at a bare minimum. Shoes are a great vector for harboring these various viruses in particular, and they're all easy ways to get your animals sick, unfortunately. So, maybe encourage those folks to wear plastic shoe covers or booties or slip-on boots, things of that nature if they, don't have clean shoes with them. And another easy thing that you can do is actually get some disinfectant. There's readily available products such as like Tektral, Synergize, those kind of things, which come in a simple aerosol can. You can spray those on your shoes, on your clothes, the floorboards, the mats in your truck, your foot pedals, things of that nature. And they do a great job of neutralizing and killing off that virus. And that's a real easy way to help keep your animals healthy going into the show season. Because, like I said, from someone who's judged a plethora of shows, a sick pig's not going to do well at your county fair, your jackpot, or your state fair moving forward. When we think more specifically about tips and ways to get your animals ready and prepped for the show ring, one of the partners that I work with at the National Port Board is actually showpig.com, a website that's very familiar to many of you. There are a lot of great resources that the team at Showpig has developed for talking on these specific topics, ranging from feeding and nutrition, understanding a feed tag, understanding how to get the most out of that product that you're feeding your animal, regardless of what brand of feed you're utilizing, ranging to tips in terms of preparation for showmanship, how to navigate a show ring, topics regarding skin and hair. We understand from a judge's perspective how important that is in the show ring in today's day and age. And they've got a great, what they call a 100 level series that's available at showpig.com under a section called The Block. And if you've not read and checked out those articles before, I'd strongly encourage you to do so. There's a lot of great resources tied in there on those various topics. For me personally, as a judge, I like an animal that, is pretty modern in terms of its type and kind. I'm a judge that's a firm believer that animals have to be functional. They have to be powerful in terms of their stoutness indicators. So heaviness of bone, having a big form, a stout skull, big tail root. And then last but not least, from a show pig perspective, these hogs have to balance up from the side and paint the silhouette of a show hog while moving forward and doing so with a functional skeleton. Um, and there's a lot of different ways that you can get there, understand that no animal's perfect, right? And that's something that I certainly implore from a judge's perspective. We highlight the good things about that animal, but we know that there's flaws. And I certainly think from a feeding and a management standpoint, there's opportunities to include information that you can get from some of those resources out there and apply that to your current show pig project and make it as successful as you can be moving forward. So, great resources there in that regard that I'd highly encourage you to tie into. Lots of good stuff there. From a skin and hair standpoint, I think this is a topic that's come more to fruition moving forward. We often talk about showing livestock and we want to present them to the T, right? Or quote unquote, dressed to the nines. They have to be fresh from a skin and hair perspective. And from a judge's standpoint, I'm not going to say that's the first thing that I look at in the show ring, right? I'm more interested in the basics about that animal. Are they functional? Do they have muscle and width? Have they grown at a acceptable rate? Are they sound in terms of their skeleton? And then building on upon that, having that skin and hair can really give you those extra bells and whistles to be successful in the show ring. One of the things that I encourage, my customers to work with and really all people to work with, and this ties into swine health as well, is deworm your animals on a regular basis. You need to be doing this at least monthly and utilizing a product such as an Ivermectin or a Dectomax. I'm sure many of you have noticed on your pigs before mange mites. Mange mites are going to take away from the overall appearance of your animal from a skin and hair perspective. And those are two easy products that you can implement to help alleviate that and freshen up your animal from a skin and hair perspective. Other things that I like to utilize is, a simple rice root brush. Going over my animal at least once a day with a rice root brush and working and lifting off those dead scales helps freshen up the skin, kind of helps tame the hair down. And then, as we're getting closer to our target show, whatever that might be, whether it's a specified jackpot within the region or maybe your county fair, you want to think about, clipping those animals. And I'll be the first to admit, from a judge's standpoint, today's day and age, we like to keep those animals hairier. That's the trend right now in the industry. When you're clipping those animals, and again, there's a lot of great resources available. I know our strategic partners at Pig have information about this as well. Typically anymore, we're not going to fully body clip those animals down to a half inch of hair. I'd highly encourage you to leave it long if you're, planning to be successful in the show ring this summer. Maybe trim up around the face and on the neck and jowl of those particular animals. If they're really, really hairy and shaggy, you might make a pass across their top line from their blade to the hip. But other than that, you probably want to keep your animals a little longer in terms of their hair, just to be successful in the show ring moving up this summer. Um, as it comes to training and working with your animals, if you haven't already, I highly encourage you, since the weather's starting to get nice, and I know many of you are out of school for the summer, get those animals out of the barn on a regular basis. Initially, when I'm working with those animals, we want to make sure it's a positive experience for that animal the first time coming out of the barn, because we know that these animals can be a little headstrong. They're not going to be cooperative, so to say, on the first go or the first pass as you're getting them out of their pen. So work with your animals slowly from a time standpoint. If it's the first time getting a pig out of a barn, I'll typically work with them at my place for about 5 to 10 minutes and then I'll put them back up. And you just kind of build and expand upon that schedule. And then, later on, as we're getting close to the show season or close to our target show, I like to have the endurance of those animals being out of the barn and working with and being driven with their heads up and making multiple passes and turns and things of that nature, for upwards of 30 to 40 minutes. I know oftentimes in a show, from a judge's standpoint, your classes may not be that long unless there's a lot of close pairs and a lot of tough decisions to make. But really building up that endurance and that stamina of your animal is going to give you the most success in the show ring moving forward. And once again, to highlight back to that series on ShowPig, they have a lot of information available talking about this. And another thing I'd encourage you to look at is, even look at videos of others working with their show pigs on social media platforms such as YouTube or TikTok. There's a lot of great resources out there from very knowledgeable and very successful folks in the show industry that can provide you with those tips and tidbits to help make your show season a success. Maggie, are there any other particular questions that you have for me that you'd like me to outline or maybe highlight from my perspective?
Yeah, so from your perspective as a judge, what things about a showman really set them apart in the ring? Like when it comes down to splitting hairs, what specifics will set a showman in first place?
Yep. So I'm a big first impression guy, and particularly as someone that's had the opportunity to judge some bigger shows across the country, that first impression and that first pass that you make out of the holding gate when someone opens the pin or you open the pin yourself needs to be a good one, and it needs to be impactful and done with intention. From a showmanship standpoint, I'm someone who's big in terms of eye contact and the ability for that showman to know where I'm standing at the judge and give me that first impressionable view from 10 to 15 feet away, and doing so with multiple angles. So if I'm the judge and you're coming out of the holding pen, one of the first things I like to see as soon as that gate opens is a chest shot of your animal. That pig's taking a step out of the holding pen with its head driven up in the air. You're making a pass by me, and then as you get around me, you kind of know where I am at the judge, and you make a pass and a turn, and then get back in front of me as well, while also still being respectful to those other exhibitors coming out of the gate. Again, I think first impressions in today's day and age, and particularly in the show ring when there's so many animals in a class, you want to have that strong look coming right out the gate and make it a memorable one. And I think with showmanship too, it also ties into this skin and hair perspective. Like I said, as a judge, if I'm evaluating these animals from a market show standpoint, not so much showmanship, I'm going to place more emphasis on the traits of that particular animal. And skin and hair is a nice additive because as a judge, it tells me and it shows me, what particular kids have really taken the time to work with their animal this summer. Fresh skin and hair, a hog that's, if it's a belted hog or a Duroc bear or maybe a colored breed, that dark pigment on the skin shows me that, hey, you've put the time and the effort in this summer to get your animal out of the barn into the sunlight to make their appearance look as fresh as you possibly can. And that really hits home with me. And I'll be the first to admit, if it comes down to close pairs of animals that are very, very similar in type and kind, most judges, including myself, are going to place more emphasis on the animal that's been worked with and is easier to view from a judge's perspective than the one that's, maybe standing off in the corner, isn't wanting to be driven, and doesn't look very good from a skin and hair standpoint.
Sounds good. And then do you have any words of encouragement for our showmen as they're ramping up working with their animals and getting ready to start showing this summer?
I do. One of the things that I'd like to tell you all is thankful. I know is thank you, excuse me. I myself am very thankful that you've taken the time to invest in a youth livestock project, and I know there's many other show pig producers across the country who feel the same way. We know that showing pigs is a great way to develop life skills, responsibility, determination, things of that nature that are, going to be highly valuable for you when you're beyond your career in 4-H or FFA. There's a lot of opportunities available within the swine industry, and I work with both commercial and show pig producers on a day-to-day basis, and they are looking for hardworking individuals such as yourself that can be that next generation of leaders and stewards for the swine industry moving forward. So thank you for, again, investing in a youth livestock project, choosing to show pigs, and good luck with your projects this summer. And just know that, long term, if you're wanting to be involved in the swine industry moving forward, whether it's raising show pigs or possibly doing something else within the swine industry, know that there's a plethora of options available for you. And your involvement with a show pig project is going to put you at the top of the line for career opportunities moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out to speak to us today. We greatly appreciate you, and hopefully, all of our 4-H and FFA showmen can take something from this and learn something as they get ready to start showing their hogs this summer.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions about showing pigs or just anything about the swine industry in general, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name's John Hines, and I work for the National Pork Board as the manager of producer relations. You can find me on Facebook if you don't know me. Thank you.
All right. Let me pause the recording here.